It's no secret that the Super Nintendo is easily my favorite console of all time. While I did start out with the NES, I have far more nostalgia for the SNES by far. That's because I only had the NES for a short time and I was super young then. The only memory of it that I have is Dr. Mario, Super Mario Bros. 3, and Kirby's Adventure. Meanwhile, the SNES had such a robust library. I love Super Mario World, Mario Kart, Mario RPG, and Goof Troop. But after expanding my horizons, I've also added Kirby Superstar, Final Fantasy VI, Link to the Past, and Super Metroid to the list. So much to explore, too! But my favorite trilogy on the console, by far, has to be the 2D platformers Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3. And out of all three of these, one of these is my favorite 2D platformer of all time. Yeah, move aside, Mario. Your rival Donkey Kong is now starting his own gaming series, and he is outperforming you pretty well this time around. Donkey Kong Country started as a concept of compressing 3D models into 2D sprites, a process Rare, a British company, brought to the table at Nintendo. They weren't the first company to try this, but they found a process that made fantastic visuals out of models, and they wanted to work with a bigger company on the idea. Nintendo bought most of Rare's stocks at the time, making them a second-party company, and let them use Donkey Kong, a character not really doing much at the time. They originally wanted to use DK and DK Jr. in this game, but made DK Jr. look more like a chimp. Nintendo didn't want them doing this, however. They told Rare to make the chimp his own original character, or to change him back into DK Jr. In the end, Diddy Kong was born as DK's best bud, and this DK was originally DK Jr. The pieces were in play to make a platformer unlike anything else, with Rare's sense of charm and hidden secrets, and Donkey's face on the cover. So let's see if their first attempt is worth playing today. The villains are a bunch of crocs named the Kremlings, along with their leader. So let's do this. Let's take on King K. Rool! So the gaming manual that, came with the game has the story this time around. Yeah, I read the manual a lot. Anyway, DK is lazy and sends Diddy to protect his treasure. And by treasure, I mean a hoard of never-spoiling, extra life-giving bananas. Diddy, however, is defeated by the Kremlings and stuffed into a barrel. Donkey wakes up, finds his hoard is missing, and goes on the hunt, finding Diddy in a trail of bananas leading to trouble. Eventually, Donkey and Diddy fight some giant animals and a bunch of Kremlings until they reach a ship owned by King K. Rool. They soon take him out. The end. This story is pretty simple, but that isn't where the writing shines. No, when it comes to the writing, I like the other Kongs personally. Funky and Candy will talk to you a bit before you use their service. But it's Cranky who's pretty funny, though. Talking about the good old 8-bit days of gaming and claiming his son isn't really up to snuff with all these newfangled graphics. Hell, Cranky makes fun of you for reading the manual. He's an ass, but I kinda love it. He'd probably make fun of me for the way I pronounce King K. Rool, too, because I know it's supposed to be pronounced King Cruel, but I don't know why I just like King K. Rool better. Just personal preference. But yeah, this is actually pretty decent writing for an SNES platform, if I'm going to be honest. When talking about the other Kongs, though, the movements are also very lively. And Donkey and Diddy also have a lot of personality in their movements as well. They ooze with the animation. Oh, love the personality here. Whether they're defeated, celebrating, losing, ducking, riding an animal buddy, these guys are always fun to look at. The enemies look fantastic too, if I'm going to be honest. I love the sprite quality in this game. The background elements even shine, and the level themes are all really decent. Forest, jungle, the ruins, the treetops, mines, all neat. Then you have the music. The opening theme is a fantastic start to the game just to pick a save file. This game's soundtrack clearly was going hard right off the bat. It continues to be great with Minecart Madness, Forest Frenzy, Treetop Rock, Funky's theme, Fear Factory, and then there's the 3 best tracks in the game. DK's Island Swing is amazing use of drum-like sounds and is a great track, with fun beats and some suspense in the music. Aquatic Ambience is one of the most beautiful underwater tracks, competing heavily with Dire Dire Docks from Super Mario 64. And Gangplank Galleon, which sounds like a tense sea shanty, while you defend against King K. Rool himself. Believe it or not, even if you hated platformers, I bet you'd actually really like this soundtrack. So going back to the game, this game actually plays like many different platformers. You can jump, your momentum changes, your jump height, you can jump on baddies' heads. There are some enemies you can't jump on, but you do have a rolling attack to deal with certain foes or bowl over a string of foes while gaining speed. Donkey himself is naturally stronger. He can topple foes that give Diddy some trouble. Diddy is faster and can jump higher. You can switch between the Kongs if you have them both. If you do have both Diddy and Donkey, the one you're playing counts as an extra hit. For example, if you play as Diddy and then take a hit, Diddy yeets out of the program and you switch to Donkey Kong. Obviously, DK barrels will have your fallen friends inside, and basically you gain a new hit. Yay! However, if you already have your buddy, they're just regular barrels then, which you can throw and defeat baddies as well for a long distance attack. Awesome! Now for the animal buddies. Around certain stages you may find a crate with an animal inside. You can find these animals and ride them similar to Yoshi from Super Mario World. Rambi, the rhino, charges through most enemies and can step on zingers, something the Kongs can't do. He can also blow open secret doors. And Guard is a swordfish that acts a lot like Rambi, but underwater, with better swimming controls, and is actually incredibly useful since the Kongs aren't as good underwater. Espresso is an ostrich that can glide while pressing the jump button. Not very good on the offense, but can walk over smaller hazards. Winky the frog can jump on most enemies and jumps higher than the Kongs, but it's a bit unruly on the ground, making him slightly hard to manage. Lastly, Squawks the parrot shows up for one level and is super small. He holds a lamp for you, and that's about it. If you take a hit on an animal buddy, they will take off, and until they run over a cliff or you actually catch them, they more or less function as another hit, which, yeah, again, is a lot like Yoshi from Super Mario World. Still, the platforming works perfectly here, and there's only a few issues with ropes being a tad bit weird. You can climb on ropes and swing from them. It's a bit awkward to get used to, but other than that, it's not bad. When talking about the levels themselves, most of them follow a similar pattern. They introduce a gimmick early in the level, and it progressively makes it harder as the level goes on. Eventually, the end of the level has the gimmick in full-blown chaos mode, as you hopefully catch a rhythm or die trying. Dang. Yeah, this along with the other Donkey Kong Country games can be rather difficult. There isn't anything that is super cheap or unfair that I find, but this game will test you later on. The animal buddies are optional in all the levels that you can find them, so the levels are designed to be able to play with them or without them. No, the level designs here are actually pretty tight, all things considered. There's the occasional level that tests nothing but reflexes though. Yeah, I'm talking the minecart levels. These are straight up reflex challenges, where you're basically speeding along in a minecart, jumping over obstacles. Some moving, some aren't. There are plenty of other challenges using a moving platform that you constantly have to tend to in different ways. There are other levels too, some in caves, some in ice or forest areas, with a lot of birds, and even ruins in which you'd be dodging hamster wheels. But instead of hamsters, they have beavers in them. All things considered, the levels are mostly fantastic, with a few that can be a little annoying. The issue is actually the boss fights. Yeah, the boss fights are exceedingly simple. You fight a big beaver and eventually hit the beaver who jumps higher. You got a bird head that spits coconuts. Oh, what about one that moves slightly faster? The more original fights include an oil drum summoning enemies and a big-ass spiked bee. The bee's the only one actually putting up a decent fight, I'm not gonna lie. The final boss is super good though. It's obviously King K. Rool. He likes shooting giant cannonballs at you while throwing crowns and jumping at you. I used to think the crown was poisonous, but now I just know he just throws them super hard. Regardless, this fight is unique and tests your reflexes and placement as well. The levels are just simply fantastic, but man, the boss fights are such a letdown, especially with how good the final boss actually is. And the secrets are a bit of a letdown too. You can find them all, but it doesn't really do anything. Some of these are hard to find as well, which is just annoying. Still, I really don't see a need of getting them all. That being said, getting the secrets as you go isn't necessarily a bad idea. A lot of these are bonus rooms which will grant you extra lives and bananas, which, yeah, you secure 100 bananas, you also get an extra life. There's also secret areas that you can find with some animal buddies as well, and bonus rooms. Get 3 golden animal statues and you're transported to a bonus room. In these rooms, you play as your animal buddy and gather up a bunch of small golden statues, and the more you get, the more lives you get. You can even find secrets in these bonus rooms and double your little animal golden statue count, raking the lives in like crazy, which is totally awesome. Overall, the bonus rooms are worth getting, but I wouldn't really go out of your way to get them all by any means. Cranky will still help you out with that if you want to try it, though. And don't think for a second that the other versions of this game are much better for that. First, let's talk about the Game Boy Color version. Jeez, look at this mess. The music is fine, but the visuals are horrid. The enemies are incredibly tough to see, blending into the background, and sometimes they're just off camera. The screen resolution is tiny, so there are literally enemies off screen, and this makes the camera move sporadically, making it hard to even move around. The movement is sporadic as well. Donkey and Diddy's movements in this version is just awkward. Hell, aiming barrels is really tough. There are times when I was trying to jump on a foe, only to seem like I missed and take out the foe anyway. Even fighting the first boss was tougher than normal. All things considered, this was not fun for me. And I only played the first world. This just feels like a bootlegged NES version, but compressed to fit the Game Boy. This is playable at the end of the day, but all things considered, this is the weakest version of Donkey Kong Country in my opinion. Which is probably why every time I landed on the ground, it seemed like I was finding a hidden cache of bananas. Huh. But there is also the Game Boy Advanced version. Now, the Game Boy Advance version I actually have some history with. I did actually purchase it for my Game Boy Advance, and this version's kind of fun. A few quality of life changes like saving in between every level, as well as being able to radio funky at any time. So with that, the shops now have mini games. You can fish or dance to your heart's content for some extra lives and pictures. Oh yeah, hidden pictures. Some of the levels have hidden cameras, then they give you pictures of enemies or some of the animal buddies. These are neato, but nothing more than just another collectible. Some of the bosses are indeed different too, but I wasn't able to get footage for them this time around. Most of them are just harder and slightly more dynamic. This version plays perfectly, and the game makes the graphics engine work. The music isn't as good as the SNES version, but it still works overall. And overall, I had fun recording this. This game is actually fun, and I recall playing it perfectly fine as a kid. This may be the reason why I recall 2 bird heads instead of 1 purple one on the original Donkey Kong Country. This may not be the best version of the game. I still say the original is superior. I still enjoyed this version of the game though, and I do recommend it if given the chance. So I think the SNES version looks and sounds the best, and it easily plays the best too. But if I were to score the games, I might actually give a higher score to the Advanced version. The Advanced fixes the boss fights issue and gives you more things to do, although it still doesn't seem like it gives you a reward for getting everything. Regardless, the Advanced version is recommended at 9 out of 10. It does that much right, but a lot of what this game does right, the SNES does better. The gameplay on the Advanced version is great, but the SNES feels better. The presentation and charm are perfectly fine, but again, the SNES is slightly better. The only things the Advance is actually better at is showcasing the story rather than using a booklet for it, as well as the boss fights and more secrets. Still, I'm giving the SNES version an 9 out of 10 as well. The game is amazing no matter which version you play. Unless you only have a Game Boy Color! Ha ha ha! This version is horrid, and I'd never be able to play a lot of it overall. So I can't give it a score. I can't recommend it either. Oops. The only thing the Game Boy Color version has for it is that there were a lot of times, like I said earlier, that I'd land on the ground and get bananas randomly. It probably was to help with the difficulty. But this version is just no fun, so no. SNES and Advance? Play any way you can with these versions that you may have access to. But yeah, avoid the colored version. Still feels like a bootleg. But that's all the time I have for this video. If you liked it, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell button. All these things do help my channel grow. Next week, if everything goes right, I'll be talking about Donkey Kong Country 2. Until then, take care, my minions. Oh, sorry. I'm actually kind of injured. I strained a muscle up on my upper chest, and if I sounded kind of funny, I do apologize. Okay, bye!